will join the EU whether Orbán wants it or not, versus we won't be morally blackmailed. The conflict between Ukraine and Hungary's leaders is gaining momentum as other countries of the region have managed to find a common tongue when it comes to helping Ukraine. For how long, though? And to talk about this and more, we're joined by Bogdan Hyler, editor-in-chief of Kiev Post. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
So, first of all, is Viktor Orbán using the conflict with Volodymyr Zelenskyy to gain more support ahead of the parliamentary elections in Hungary? And if the answer is yes, why? Because it seems that it's not working anymore.
It's not working anymore, but he wants to give it a chance. It's also leverage within the EU to get more money for Hungary, to get more clout for himself. He's fairly isolated, but this is still a powerful lever that he has. And also, I think he looks at the Polish example, that the Ukrainian case has been used in politics, in domestic politics, and is still being used. And perhaps he's learning from that too.
Well, we have a very, very big Ukrainian diaspora these days in Poland, so it's quite understandable that politicians will exploit the topic. Now, on the other hand, Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated Ukraine will be in the European Union with or without Orbán because this is the choice of the people of Ukraine. Now, why is the Ukrainian president so sure about it? Even France was against, this latest proposal by Antonio Costa of changing the admission rules.
Cutting corners.
Yes.
Streamlining the process. Well, obviously, Ukraine is a big country. And if the war ends, even with Ukraine temporarily having to not give up, but accept the fact that 20% or what of its territory is occupied temporarily. It's still a big country, and it's an agrarian powerhouse, as we know. It's shown itself to be, creative in the technological sense. Now, remember, go back a few decades. I mean, remember the attitude towards Poland joining from the Irish and the French, and the whole issue of the common agricultural policy. People are defensive. They seem to be altruistic on the surface, but they defend their own interests. It's quite common.
Well, every change is difficult.
Yes, every change is difficult. So, Zelenskyy has to say that. He has to promise the Ukrainian people something, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We haven't fought and suffered for so long to be told, know your place, you're going to be neutralized, you're not going to be allowed anywhere, and just be happy to be alive, So you can understand him. But on the other hand, I think he is being encouraged by quite a few of the Western leaders that your time is coming. It's coming faster than perhaps was expected. So just be patient, and let's see how we can settle the war, how we can suspend the fighting for a meaningful amount of time, give you some security, and let's see how you can fit into the broader scheme of things. So I think for the longer term, he hopes that will work and that there will be a place for Ukraine at the end of the day. And I think he's also encouraged by Russia's actions in the last months, weeks. These mysterious drones have added to the fears and complexes in Europe. And when you hear the German Chancellor, for example, after Merkel's reign, talking about Europe being at war already, under attack, not just from cyber attacks or disinformation or whatever, but, mysterious drones appearing, ships appearing offshore, mysterious, etc., etc. I think Zelenskyy is also sensing that there's a change in mindsets that is favorable for once in history, in the modern period, to the Ukrainian case, and that the Russians are helping this by basically behaving like a Tarzan in a jungle, beating their chest and saying, because of Trump's, prevarication, with the Russian aggression in many forms, that this is playing into Ukraine's hands. Zelenskyy saying, we told you so. You know who you're up against. Now do you believe us?
Right, now talking about changing a mindset, What happened in Slovakia that they are so eager to provide military help to Ukraine?
I don't know. Behind the scenes, obviously, pressure of sorts has been applied, perhaps the sort that is being applied to Orbán too. But I think, we've seen after the Czech elections, perhaps that maybe this enthusiasm will wane and maybe the new government in Czechia will be more reluctant to provide the ammunition that it has been providing, the shells in particular, for Ukraine, and perhaps that will influence Slovakia. But again, much depends on Poland, because you have a government that is very pro-Ukrainian in many ways, in most ways, and you have a president that, shall we say, less enthusiastic about helping Ukraine, which is not to say he's anti-Ukrainian, but, caters more to the populist sentiment, and as you say, rightly acknowledges the fact that Ukrainians are here in force, and they've been here for a long time now.
Before we talk about Poland and the Ukrainian diaspora, I have one more question about the Czech Republic. Now, do you think that there's such a possibility that now Czechia will take on the role of Slovakia? Because Andrej Babiš, probably soon to be the next Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, was quite clear about his views on providing military help to Ukraine during the elections.
Well, it's complicated by the fact that he has his own position, but he has to form a coalition of rightist parties to the right of him who are even more reluctant to support Ukraine and in many ways are pro-Russian. So I think that is what we will see. But on the other hand, perhaps Slovakia, given the right carrots and inducements from the EU and support from others, might feel that their moment has come to be a little bit more autonomous in that Visegrad setup and to be heard, to have their voice heard in Europe, as opposed to be dominated by their neighbours.
Poland now. So Polish president wants to change the law and extend the minimal residence period before obtaining the Polish citizenship from 3 to 10 years, more or less, but numbers here are still quite unclear. Now, the question is, why does the presidential palace fear this potential new group of voters?
Firstly, I think you have to take a balanced approach to it. One can understand certain concerns because in most cases, for example, when I'm not in Kiev, I live in Barcelona. It takes 5 years to get a residency, first time. Then it's renewed for 5 years, and only after 10 years can you apply for a Spanish citizenship, for instance. So in Poland, the waiting period was short until now. But you have a lot of...
Is there a citizenship test? Because that's
yes,
the governmental proposal.
You have to know the language well enough. You have to have a history test, quite long, about 2 hours in Spain, etc. But look, even in Britain, in recent weeks, they've tightened up and are asking not only long-term residents but even refugees, those with temporary protection, to show that they know the language, that they're integrating, that they're not just, relying on freebies, as it were. So you can understand that coming in Poland, but I think that what is dismaying for Ukrainians is that they feel that they're a special case because of the war, that they didn't plan to be here for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. But many now have put down roots, and perhaps many of them are giving up with the idea of returning to Ukraine because of the enormous, sort of tasks of rebuilding, security, etc., confidence, corruption, or whatever it is. So this was a very comfortable base. Why? It's a neighboring country. The languages are mutually intelligible. The Ukrainians have had, by and large, a good reputation as workers, as hard workers, not as freeloaders. So that's been good. But,
Having said that, do you think that the Ukrainians should have their own MPs in the Polish parliament?
Not necessarily. Look, we don't want to open a can of worms, because this was a question asked in the 20s and 30s of the large Ukrainian minority that was here. I think that for those Ukrainians, they shouldn't be special for Ukrainians. They should be part of the body politic. Look, during the Solidarity period, at least two of my friends, Ukrainians, ethnic Ukrainians, were MPs, Miroslav Shekh and another professor, Mokry from Krakow. But they were part of the Solidarity movement. They didn't appear as Ukrainian MPs, you know, shall we say, representing Ukrainian interests. So I don't think that's the case. But look, there's another angle to it, and that is that perhaps this plays into the hands of the Zelenskyy administration, which fears that many millions of Ukrainians will never return. How do we rebuild the country afterwards? What's going to be the workforce? What do we invite Pakistanis, Indians, Syrians, whoever it is? You know, does Ukraine want that, or would it prefer many of its people to gradually return home, particularly the younger people? So, you know, this whole issue is one that has got Ukrainians thinking not just about their own personal welfare, but the government too, as well as the Polish authorities, and, you know, the split being evident between the approach between the government and the presidential administration. We're still awaiting to see what the government will propose.
And we'll learn that by the end of the month. Bogdan Nahaila, the editor-in-chief of Kiev Post, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews and news here on TVP World.